Lesson 33, the Federal Bureaucracy. The federal government's essential duties include defending the United States from foreign aggression and terrorism, representing the United States' interests overseas, enforcing laws and regulations, and administering domestic programs and agencies. U.S. citizens are aware of the federal government when they pay their income taxes each year, but they usually do not consider the government's role when they watch a weather forecast or purchase fresh and uncontaminated groceries, travel by highway or air, or make a deposit at the bank. The largest branch of the three branches of government is the executive branch. The executive branch employs about 98% of all federal civilian employees. With more than 1.8 million civilian employees, the federal government, excluding the Postal Service, is the nation's largest employer. About 9 out of 10 federal employees work outside of Washington, D.C. And the executive branch of the federal government is a bureaucracy. We define bureaucracy as government by bureau or department. Government by bureau or department. Bureaucracy. The agencies and employees of the executive branch are known as the federal bureaucracy, organization with many specialized departments. These departments and agencies carry out government programs and help shape government policy. The executive bureaucracy is shaped like a pyramid. At the top is the Executive Office of the President, known as the EOP. Then the 15 executive departments. And then the 90 independent agencies. Let's begin at the top. The President and the EOP, the Executive Office of the President, at the top of the pyramid. The EOP consists of the immediate staff of the President of the United States, as well as the multiple levels of support staff reporting to the President. The immediate staff. Within the Executive Office of the President, lots of various offices. Let's take a look at the ones in blue. We've talked about these. The Council of Economic Advisors, the National Security Council, the Office of Management and Budget, the White House office, as well as many other offices. The White House employs about 1,800 full-time employees. This is the Executive Office of the President. They work in the West Wing, the East Wing, and the Executive Office building across the street. You can see the White House complex. This is from an aerial view of the South Lawn. The West Wing is to the left of the White House. That's the residency where the President lives. To the right of the White House is the East Wing, and the Executive Office building is across the street, far upper left of the picture. The East Wing, the West Wing. The West Wing contains the Oval Office of the President as well as his top staffers. And then the Executive Office building, sometimes called the Old Eisenhower Executive Office building. The West Wing floor plan it's a 2-floor building. The EOP writes bills, prepares reports, and checks the work of various agencies. Remember, only members of Congress can introduce the bills. but the EOP helps write bills for members to introduce. What is some of the personnel who work within the EOP? They directly support or advise the President of the United States. The White House staff, including the President's closest advisors. Very few of these now need confirmation by the Senate. The President gets to pick and choose who he wants to work in the White House with him. The Chief of Staff, current Chief of Staff is John Kelly. The Chief of Staff organizes the staff. His main role is to screen the flow of information and people who get in to see the President. Now, just within the White House office, there's a lot, as you can see. Advance, appointments and scheduling, Office of Cabinet Affairs, the Chief of Staff's office, the Office of Communications, Office of the Press Secretary. All these are within just the White House office, which is within the Executive Office of the President. Again, government by bureau or department. Other top staff of the President is the Press Secretary, the official spokesman for the President, conducts press briefings to the media on a daily basis. The current Press Secretary is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Robert Gibbs was the first Press Secretary for former President Barack Obama. The Press Secretary is the official spokesperson, the mouthpiece for the President, speaking to the media on a daily basis. They hold daily press briefings. It's a very frustrating job. Senior staff within the EOP have the title of Assistant to the President. Second-level staff have the title Deputy Assistant to the President. Third-level staff have the title of Special Assistant to the President. And very few of these need Senate confirmation. The OMB is a part of the EOP. OMB stands for the Office of Management and Budget. They prepare the federal budget. They monitor government spending. The federal budget lays out the administration's goals and plans for the coming year. They submit that to Congress, then Congress works on it. The Council of Economic Advisors advise the President about complex economic matters. And then we mentioned the NSC in a previous lesson, the National Security Council, help coordinate military and foreign policy. Below the EOP are the 15 executive departments of the federal government, the heads of which are called the Cabinet. 15 separate executive branch departments. They make policy decisions and advise the President on issues related to their department. We're going to take you through President Trump's cabinet and explain these departments in the next lesson. The heads of these departments are called secretaries, except the Attorney General, who is the head of the Department of Justice. They advise the President. Okay, you have 90 independent agencies below the 15 executive departments. These independent agencies are not a part of these departments. That's why they're called independent agencies. They're part of the executive branch, but not part of the 15 executive departments. They still report to the President. Remember, the President is chief executive, so they report to the President. They've been established through separate laws or statutes passed by Congress. A statute It's a law, written law by a legislative body. Each statutory grant of authority defines the goals of the agency, and the agency has the power of rulemaking. They have the power of administrative law. These agency rules, or what we call regulations, have the power of federal law, administrative law, not legislative, because these rules, regulations are not written by Congress, they're written by these agencies. But they still have the power of law. It's a special type of law called administrative law. And there's around 90 of them within the federal government. The nature and purpose of these agencies varies widely. Some provide a service or function for the government or the American people. Examples of independent agencies are the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, the Federal Reserve Board, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, known as the FDIC, the Social Security Administration, NASA. These are independent agencies within the federal government, but not part of the 15 executive departments. Some independent agencies regulate certain parts of the economy. They supervise certain sectors. These are called regulatory commissions, such as the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board. They make and enforce rules for certain industries. We'll actually have a little unit on these when we get to government regulation, when we talk about the American economy. But we're going to come back to these regulatory commissions. You can see a list of them here, very important ones, what they do. We'll have a separate lesson on this because I think it's really important, but we'll come back to it when we study our economy. Others provide services to the government or to the people. These are called government corporations, such as the Postal Service, the Tennessee Valley Authority, Amtrak, owned and operated by the government, not by a private business or corporation, but by the government. That's why we call them government corporations. Tennessee Valley Authority, providing power to many customers in Tennessee. The federal government makes an effort to have a workforce as diverse as the nation's civilian labor force. They are an equal employment opportunity hirer. There's about 92,000 federal workers overseas. Okay, working in the federal government, make up what we call the civil service. They work in management, business, financial workers, 33%. Accountants, auditors, management analysts, purchasing agents, tax examiners, revenue agents. Professional and related occupations account for about 33% of federal employment. Scientists, life, physical, and social science occupations, biological scientists, environmental scientists, foresters. Many work in healthcare, nurses, doctors, surgeons, engineers, aerospace, civil, computer, hardware, electrical, industrial, mechanical, nuclear. They all work within the federal government. Lawyers, judges, related workers, support occupations, clerical workers. All must be federal citizens. We're going to stop here, take a break here in this lesson. We'll wrap this up in our next lesson as we talk about the cabinet. But to work in the federal government, you must be a U.S. citizen, not a green card alien, a U.S. citizen. We'll pick up with this point in our next lesson.